Hi, today we are going to read The Kid Who Ran for President, chapters 20 through 22. Chapter 20 is called Moon, You Don't Have Opinions. I was over at Lane's house when he flipped on the news and we saw Chelsea Daniels' face fill the screen. She and a group of her friends were marching around the state capitol carrying signs that said SOS on them. Save our silkworms, they were chanting. Save our silkworms. The reporter pulled Chelsea aside and asked her how she and I got along. Judson and I have our little spats like any couple, she said, but he always finds a way to patch things up. If we can settle our little differences, I'm sure he can bring our country together too. That's the kind of person he is. I'm sure he'll be a wonderful president, and I'm really looking forward to being First Lady. Save our silkworms. Save our silkworms. She hardly even knows me, I said disgustedly. We've never even spent 5 minutes together. I'm telling you, Moon, Lane said, that girl has the potential to go far. We turned off the set and Lane dropped a bombshell. The League of Women Voters had invited me to debate President White and Senator Dunn live on national television a week before Election Day. Immediately, I started to panic. Debate those guys? I said. I can't even talk my parents into raising my allowance. Can't we just make a videotape and send it in? Stop worrying so much, Lane said. I've got a plan. Lane always seemed to have a plan. He flipped on his laptop and clicked open a file titled Debate Strategy. On the left side of the screen was a long list of all the hot button issues Americans are always arguing about. On the right side were numbers indicating how Americans feel about each issue. He had downloaded the data from the latest Gallup poll. It looked like this. Affirmative action, 42% were in favor, 50% were opposed. Stricter gun control, 70% were in favor, 4% were opposed. Nuclear power, 55% were in favor, 42% were opposed. Death penalty, 59% were in favor, 29% were opposed. And it went on like that for dozens of issues. It's simple, Lane explained. This is how the average American feels about every important issue. All you have to do is memorize a paragraph about each issue that reflects that opinion. Average Americans will agree with you that they should vote for you. But what if my opinion is different from the average Americans? I asked Lane. You have opinions, Moon? He asked with a sneer. Sure, I have opinions. Then tell me, Lane asked, where do you stand on endangered species? Well, if they're endangered, I wouldn't stand on them. Seriously now, no jokes. I thought about it for a moment, and then I said, we've got to protect animals that are endangered so they don't become extinct. Okay, Lane replied. Would you protect some owls if it meant hundreds of loggers would lose their jobs? Human loggers? I stammered. I guess not. Okay, what's your position on gun control, Moon? I'm definitely in favor, I replied confidently. If we get guns off the streets, fewer people will be shot and killed. But Moon, the Bill of Rights specifically gives citizens the rights to bear arms. Oh, I replied, well, if that's in the Bill of Rights, then people should have the right to own a gun. You can't take both sides on every issue, Moon. Why not, I complained. I can see both sides on every issue. You look wishy-washy, Lane said. The public wants its leader to have strong opinions. But what if both sides have an issue have a good argument? Then you follow the opinions on the computer, he said, gesturing toward the numbers on the screen. Those are the opinions the public wants you to take. People vote for politicians to represent them. So doesn't it make sense that politicians' opinions should be the same as the public's opinion? That feels backwards to me, I said. I think the president should form an opinion first and inspire the public to agree with that opinion. Moon, you don't have any opinions. He was right, I suppose. Taking sides has always been a problem with me. I can form an opinion, but as soon as somebody comes along and explains the opposite view, I change my mind. The last person I speak with always sounds right. Maybe that's why people like me. Lane and I spent the next 3 weeks cramming for the debate. He wrote out my opinions on all the major issues and I memorized them. I didn't learn a whole lot about the issues, but I learned which ones America was in favor of and which ones America opposed. Lane would grill me by firing questions at me repeatedly. What should we do about illegal immigration? Unemployment? Medicare? The minimum wage? I had all the answers on file cards. It was hard to keep everything straight in my head. Boning up for the debate was much tougher than school, which I was missing more and more of as October went by and the debate got even closer. Chapter 21, Time to Panic. With my army of Moonies all over the country working on our behalf, Moon and June kept rising in the polls. We were just 10 points behind President White and 5 points behind Senator Dunn on the day of the big debate. Lane and I took a limo out to Chicago that morning and checked into the Palmer House Hotel. What I found most amazing was that everywhere I went, people knew me. I had hardly traveled out of Madison, Wisconsin in my whole life, and everybody in Chicago knew me. People in the airport rushed over to shake my hand. The hotel staff treated me like a visiting dignitary. Kids on the street looked at me like I was a rock star. The debate was 2 hours away. I started putting on my gray sport jacket and Lane stopped me. Nope. Gray is boring, he said, picking out a dark blue jacket and bright red striped tie. The camera will love you in this. Wear colors of authority. Isn't it weird how they have like a thing for everything, like colors of authority and what colors mean to other people? It's crazy. I started to protest, but decided against it. Lane had gotten us this far. It wouldn't be fair to start calling the shots myself now. Lane called a limo to take us to McCormick Place, a convention center where the debate was to be held. Security was tight. There were police and Secret Service agents everywhere, talking into their sleeves, constantly scanning the crowd for potential troublemakers. The thought crossed my mind that it would be cooler to be a Secret Service agent than to be the president. When we got inside, we were escorted to a room for our last-minute preparations before airtime. This is it, Moon, Lane said. What you say tonight can put us over the top. You can do it. I know you can. He sounded like my little league coach. I was nervous as a cat in a vet's waiting room, and it showed. Sweat was coming through my shirt. I couldn't stand still. Relax, Lane kept telling me. Take a deep breath. Remember what I told you. Don't put your hands in your pockets. Don't look at your watch. Make eye contact at all times. With who? The moderator? No, with the camera, he said. You want to connect with the people of America. I tried to go over my opinions on the issues. There were so many facts buzzing around my head that I started mixing everything up. I felt like my brain was overloading and the circuit breakers were shutting the system down. I started to panic. I forgot what affirmative action was. I couldn't remember if I was for or against gun control. I could barely think of my name. What a time for my mind to go blank. And what a time for somebody to knock on the door and usher me to the podium. I was in a fog. I barely even noticed President White and Senator Dunn smiling at me from their podiums. The director stood before us and whispered, "We're on the air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lights, camera." Chapter 22, The Great Debate. As I stood behind my podium and looked at the President of the United States 15 feet away, a thought hit me that should have hit me about 10 months ago. Who am I fooling? I don't have opinions on any important issues, I thought to myself. I have no business being here. I only wanted to run for president as a goof. I never thought it would go this far. I cannot run a country. I'm like one of those idiots who run on the field in the middle of a baseball game, but it was too late to back out. I couldn't just walk off the stage. It was at that moment that I figured out my only option was to sabotage my own candidacy. Sabotage means mess it up on purpose. I decided to do what I always do when I'm in a jam. Play it for laughs and act like a jerk. Maybe America will forgive me for wasting its valuable time. Maybe people will say, boys will be boys, and let me go back to my normal life. The League of Women Voters who sponsored the debate had decided on a format designed to prevent candidates from rambling on and on. Each candidate would be asked a question by members of a panel and have 20 seconds to complete his answer. The three of us would take turns fielding the questions. The moderator introduced President White, Senator Dunn, and me. The panel of journalists fired the first question at Senator Dunn and the next one at the president. Each of them gave their very thoughtful, rehearsed, and to me, anyway, boring responses. Then everyone looked at me. Mr. Moon, I was asked, a third-party candidate has never won the presidency. What makes you think your Lemonade Party can? Lane knew I would be asked this question, and he had written a great answer for it, but I improvised. Improvised means he went off the scheduled speech. I look at it this way, I said. The two-party system is an improvement on a one-party system. Therefore, three parties should be an improvement on two parties. Americans love parties, and I believe the more parties we have, the better. I would start a fourth party if I could, but I can only start one party at a time. So in conclusion, I say, let's party, America. The place erupted. The studio audience was screaming. Half of them were laughing their heads off. The other half were demanding that I be removed from the auditorium. The panel of journalists stared at me open-mouthed. It took a while for order to be restored. As soon as I finished giving that answer, a sense of calm came over my body. I stopped sweating. I wasn't nervous anymore. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I felt like I was back in the school cafeteria goofing on Arthur Krantz and his jerky friends. The three candidates took turns. Every time a panel of journalists threw a question at me, I threw the answer right back. Question. You're on record as saying your first official act as president will be to abolish homework. What will your second official act be? To abolish making beds. Why make a bed in the morning? You're only going to sleep in it again at night. Question. What do you plan to do about jobs? Answer. I plan to get one as soon as my term as president is over. Question. Which president do you most admire and why? Answer. Grover Cleveland, because he became president despite the fact that he was named after a character on Sesame Street. Question. How do you feel about school prayer? Answer. Every morning I pray that school will be closed. Question. What do you intend to do about teenage pregnancy?
Attention everyone in the building. We are going to be working on the fire.
Answer. My dad says we're going to sit down and have a talk about that, but he keeps putting it off. Question. It takes a tremendous amount of desire to become president. Do you have the fire in the belly? Answer. Yeah, it must have been those tacos I ate for dinner. Question. What's the toughest part about running for president? Answer. Learning not to pick my nose in public. Question. What do you think we should do about hazardous waste? Answer. I'd suggest you try a strong laxative. That ought to do it, I thought to myself. I couldn't say anything more disgusting, juvenile, or unpresidential than that. Nobody could possibly take me seriously as a candidate for president. President White and Senator Dunn stood there during my answers. Both of them were flustered. When the journalists asked them a question, they fumbled all over the place, trying to look dignified. I guess they weren't used to obnoxious kids. For our final statements, all three of us were asked to address one issue we would like to be likely to face as president: how to achieve lasting peace in the Middle East. The president gave a little speech about how he had formed deep relationships with all the Mideast leaders over the last 4 years. Senator Dunn said that the United States had to back up its friends in the event of a conflict. I didn't have a strong opinion on this subject, and I couldn't think of a good wisecrack, so I told a little story. One time, I was at a baseball card show, and some kids got into a big argument over whose cards belonged to whom. I stepped in the middle of it and looked over their collections. I told one kid that if he gave the second kid his Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card and the other kid gave him 2 Derek Jeter cards, they would be even. I told the third kid that if he gave each of the other kids his Alex Rodriguez and Sammy Sosa cards, they would probably give him the Chipper Jones and Todd Helton cards that he wanted. To make a long story short, they made all the swaps and everybody was happy afterwards. So I think I could keep everybody in the Middle East happy the same way. I don't believe that the Iraqis collect baseball cards, the monitor chuckled. Well, maybe they should, I said. It's better to fight over cards than it is to fight over countries. And that was the end of the debate. The moderator came over and thanked all three of us for participating. I shook hands with the president and even got his autograph. When I came off the stage, Lane was sitting on the floor with his knees up and his head buried in his hands. He looked like a kid whose pet had died or something. I'm sorry, Lane, I said. I guess I just don't have the fire in my belly to be president. He didn't say a word to me on the ride back to Madison. He just stared out the window. And that's the end of chapter 22. Stay tuned for the next chapters.